Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to share with you 4 tips on how to become a better public speaker. Hey you, it's me Gina Sue and welcome to my channel where I talk about self-development. Today I'm going to do something a little different and talk about public speaking because this is one of the most requested videos thus far. So let's dive right in. Number 1, you want to utilize pauses. So if I were to speak like this again and again, you'd probably start to zone out and think I'm a robot or have nothing really important to say to you. Do you realize how when I paused at the end, it kind of captured your attention? It made you really stop to think, wait, what is Gina gonna say next? And that's such an important thing to do in public speaking. Now, all of us have a natural pattern in which we talk. If you've watched all of my videos, you know that I have a specific speaking pattern. So it's very important to utilize pauses so you can bring your audience attention back to you and what you're saying. Number 2, I'm going to utilize this tool right now to share with you what tip number 2 is. So, number 2 is a really great tip, and not a lot of people know about it. So, do you want to hear what it is? It's really interesting. So, are you sure you want to know what tip number 2 is? Okay, well, tip number 2 is that you should ask questions. And this is really engaging because an audience member has to answer either in their head or out loud in order to feel like they can move forward and hear what you have to say next. So even if you're giving a business presentation or you're just casually talking with someone and you want to keep them engaged, then ask a question. You can insert it anytime, anywhere, just to hook them back in. Number 3, if you're actually going to give a public speech, then I request that you memorize it as much as you can. Now, I don't want you guys to freak out and be like, Gina, I'm so bad at memorizing and this is not going to work out if I have to just riff on stage. Well, let me break it down for you. Me, myself, I never bring a full sheet of paper with all the words typed out if I'm going to give a speech. I always have a tiny postcard or note card, and I have little bullet points of all the stories and points I want to hit. And that's all I allow myself to bring is just one postcard. If you start to limit yourself to certain bullet points, then you'll start to know what stories go along with each topic. So for example, if I'm giving a self-development speech about how to overcome fatigue, for example, and I do a bullet point of a story of Gina's last year feeling of fatigue, then I know, okay, this story is where I talk about where I felt fatigue last year. Then what I do is I pace around in my home and I say that story over and over again in as many different iterations as possible. I'll, say it once in front of the mirror, or I'll casually be folding my laundry and saying the story again and again and again. So I'm not really memorizing it, but I'm getting myself very familiar with that story. So when I'm on stage and I see that postcard note that says, talk about Gina's story of fatigue last year, then I'm like, I've shared this story 1,000,000 times. So I can just do it now on stage without having to look down at your piece of paper. So this is very important because I think anytime a speaker looks down, that gives the audience an opportunity to zone out or look away or feel like what you're saying isn't as important. So I'm gonna say it. Memorize your speech. All right, number 4 is use eye contact. This is so very important because the more you connect with someone's eyes, the more you keep them engaged. Now, this is what I like to do is scan the room. When you're talking, let's say you have an auditorium and people of different levels, you don't want to exclude the people who are at the top, in the back, or you don't want to exclude the people who are at the very front. And so just by shifting the angle of your head and looking at where everyone is seated, that way you keep everyone in the room and in this private space with you. Here's the thing. Speeches are very kind of public and basic in the way that they're to a large crowd, if they are. But no matter what size audience you have, using eye contact makes your conversation feel like it's just between you and the person. So as many times as you can do that with someone and make them really feel acknowledged, then you're being a better and engaged public speaker. Now, something I really enjoy doing is if you have a Q&A segment, or if you have someone who seems really engaged, give them a little extra eye contact, because you want to reward the people who are there with you. So in a Q&A segment, if the person up there was the one who asked me a question, then I'll answer that question to that person. And if it's something more general, then maybe I'll, share it with everyone else. But I want to make sure to this person that I answered their question. So that's an example. Number 5, use props and have fun. So I want to share a little story with you. When I was in high school, I was the valedictorian, which meant that I got to give the graduation speech at my high school graduation. And so I decided to make my entire speech about shoes and how different people wear shoes in different times of their life, and just reflect back on high school. And I talked about the different cliques in our school, like the Converse wearing, casual punks, and the athletic shoe wearing jocks and all that. And I made it fun and friendly. But here's the thing I did at the very beginning. Before I started my speech and I introduced this cool theme, I said, life is really like this one thing. It's like shoes. And I was wearing these high heels, and I took off my shoe and I put it on the podium, and I spent the rest of my speech standing on one foot with the shoe on the podium as I talked through this shoe analogy about high school and life and taking steps into our new future and all that cheesy goodness. But it was really, really fun to use a prop to represent what I was talking about. So if you're a business person and you have your little clicker, or you have, a fun show and tell item, bring those items in, because when you have something physical to share, or even an image on a slide to share, that's really, really helpful. So take advantage of props. The last thing is do it a lot. You're gonna mess up, you're gonna flub, you're gonna freeze on stage, you're gonna sweat through your stage clothes. You guys, I have done it all. The more practice, the better you'll be at it. And here's the thing, your audience members are always rooting for you to do well. Because have you ever gone to hear someone speak and you're sitting there and you're like, I hope they mess up. I hope they forget what their topic is. No one's ever really thinking that, unless it's a really terrible person who's full of hate. But usually all your audience members are like, does this person have something interesting to share? Oh my gosh, they're so engaging. I want to hear more. I'm really excited for this person. So just know that your audience members are always rooting for you, and I'm rooting for you. So enjoy and go out there and speak as much as you can with pauses and eye contact and props, and try to memorize. Walk around at home like a crazy person saying your stories all day long, because that's going to make you a better public speaker. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week on my video. Enjoy. Bye. Mwah.